I came home early from a work trip and found a coffee mug on my kitchen counter. Two mugs. Mine was still in the cabinet exactly where I always leave it. I hadn't been home in 4 days. My wife was at work. The house was locked when I walked in. No signs of forced entry. Nothing missing. Nothing disturbed, just a mug sitting on my counter that didn't belong to me. That I stood there for a long time staring at it. It was a plain white mug with a small chip on the handle. I had never seen it before in my life. I picked it up carefully. There was a faint ring of dried coffee at the bottom. Recent. Maybe that morning that I set it back down exactly where I found it. Then I took out my phone and booked a flight back to Denver for Thursday instead of calling my wife to tell her I was already home. My name is James Calloway. I am 41 years old. I work as a regional operations manager for a logistics company headquartered in Denver, Colorado. The job requires me to travel roughly 10 days out of every month. Sometimes more. Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Albuquerque, occasionally further. I have done this for 6 years, and in that time I have built what I thought was a stable and honest life. My wife Lauren is 38. She works as an office administrator for a dental practice 3 miles from our house. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, home by 5:30 most evenings. We have been married for 8 years. We own a 4-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with mature trees and a covered back porch that I built myself over 2 summers. We do not have children. That had been a conversation we kept deferring, always one more year, one more milestone, one more thing to sort out first. Looking back, I think we were both avoiding the question for different reasons. I thought I knew my wife completely. I did not know her at all. The trips had been longer than usual over the previous 3 months. A warehouse expansion project in Phoenix had kept me away for stretches of 5 and 6 days at a time. Lauren seemed fine with it. Supportive even. She had her routine, her friends, her Thursday evening pottery class. She texted regularly. Called most evenings. Nothing seemed different. I came home from each trip to a clean house, a home-cooked meal, a wife who seemed genuinely happy to see me. In October I started noticing small things I could not explain. The first was a throw pillow on the couch that had moved. I am aware of how that sounds. But I am someone who notices details for a living, and that particular pillow had been in the same corner of the couch for 2 years. When I came home from a 4-day trip to Salt Lake City, it was on the opposite end. I said nothing. Told myself I was wrong. The second was a smell. Subtle, almost imperceptible. A cologne that was not mine. I caught it in the living room one evening and stood there trying to identify it. By the time I thought to say something, it was gone, and I had already talked myself out of it. The third was the mug that I drove to a hardware store that afternoon and bought 2 small wireless security cameras. The kind that connect to an app on your phone and store footage in the cloud. I had them installed within 2 hours. One in the living room aimed at the front door. One in the kitchen angled toward the counter and the back hallway. I positioned them inside the spines of books on the shelves. Both were completely invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Then I got back in my car and drove to a hotel near the airport. I did not call Lauren. I told her that evening that my flight had been delayed and that I would be back Thursday as planned. She said she missed me. She asked if I wanted her to make lasagna when I got home. I said that sounded perfect. I hung up and stared at the ceiling of my hotel room for a long time. I opened the camera app and checked the feeds. Both cameras were working. The house was quiet. Lauren's car was in the driveway. I watched her move through the kitchen making dinner, her movements easy and relaxed, completely unaware. I closed the app and tried to sleep. The notification came at 7:14 the following morning. Motion detected. Front door. I sat up immediately and opened the app. The timestamp showed Lauren leaving for work at her usual time, 7:48. Normal. Expected. Then at 8:23 the front door opened again. A man walked in. He was tall, early 40s, dark hair going gray at the temples. He wore a jacket I did not recognize and carried a reusable grocery bag in one hand. He moved through my front door with the ease of someone who had done it many times before. No hesitation. No looking around. He knew exactly where he was going. He went straight to the kitchen. I watched on my phone screen as he set the grocery bag on the counter, opened my refrigerator, and put several items inside. Then he filled the kettle, set it on the stove, and leaned against the counter while he waited for it to boil. He made himself coffee in the white mug with the chipped handle. He sat at my kitchen table and drank it. Then he walked down the hallway toward our bedroom. I put the phone face down on the hotel bed and sat with my hands pressed flat on my knees and breathed steadily for about 3 minutes. Then I picked the phone back up and kept watching. His name was Ryan Marsh. It took me less than 40 minutes to find out once I had a clear screenshot of his face from the camera footage. A mutual connection on LinkedIn. He worked in commercial real estate. His profile showed a smiling headshot, a list of professional accomplishments, and a location that put him 12 minutes from our house. I had never heard Lauren mention his name once. I called my friend Cooper that afternoon. Cooper had been through his own difficult divorce 4 years earlier and had come out the other side with a clear head and the name of a very good family law attorney named Patricia Hale. I had been present for some of the worst months of his life, and he had told me more than once that the best thing he did was get legal advice before he did anything else. I told Cooper I needed Patricia's number. He did not ask why. He texted it to me within 5 minutes. Patricia picked up on the second ring. I gave her a condensed version of the situation. Footage of a man entering my home with a key while my wife was at work. A pattern of unexplained absences and small inconsistencies over 3 months. A marriage that from the outside looked completely intact. Patricia asked 2 questions. Whether the house was in both our names and whether I had a secure place to store the camera footage that Lauren could not access. Both answers were yes. She told me not to confront Lauren yet. She told me to keep documenting and to change nothing about my behavior. She told me to come see her the following week. I drove back to Denver on Thursday as planned. Lauren made lasagna. She had set the table properly, the good plates, cloth napkins, a candle in the middle. She hugged me at the door and asked about the trip and poured 2 glasses of wine and sat across from me and talked about her week with the easy fluency of someone with nothing to hide. I ate the lasagna. I asked questions. I laughed at the right moments. The white mug was gone from the counter. I had checked the camera footage before I walked through the door. She had washed it and put it away in the cabinet behind my travel mugs. 3rd shelf. She did not know I had already counted every item in that cabinet before I left. After dinner I did the dishes while she watched television in the other room. I could hear her laughing at something. Comfortable. Relaxed. I dried the plates and put them away and said nothing. Ryan Marsh came back on Tuesday. I was in a meeting in Phoenix when the notification came through. I excused myself for 10 minutes and watched the footage in a corridor outside the conference room. He arrived at 9:15. He was there for 2 hours and 40 minutes. He left at 11:58. 12 minutes before Lauren's lunch break ended and she would have needed to return to work. The timing was precise. Practiced. When I got back to the meeting I sat down and finished the agenda and answered every question asked of me with complete focus. I am good at compartmentalizing. It is something my job has trained into me over years. You put what cannot be handled right now into a separate room in your mind and you close the door and you work the problem in front of you. That evening I downloaded every minute of footage onto an encrypted external drive and emailed copies to Patricia Hale's secure client portal. Then I closed my laptop and called Lauren. She told me she had a quiet day. She asked when I was coming home. Friday, I said. Same as always. I met with Patricia on a Wednesday morning 10 days after I found the mug. Her office was on the 14th floor of a building downtown. Clean, organized, the kind of space that had seen every version of this situation and remained professionally undisturbed by all of them. She had already reviewed the footage I sent. She laid out the situation plainly. The house was jointly owned. 8 years of marriage meant significant shared assets. Lauren's income was roughly 60% of mine, which would factor into any settlement calculation. The footage was legally obtained on property I co-owned using cameras I had purchased and installed myself. It was admissible. What Patricia wanted to establish was a clear timeline and documentation of the financial picture before Lauren knew anything was coming. She asked me to pull 3 months of bank statements and credit card records. She asked whether Lauren had any accounts I was not aware of. She asked about the retirement accounts, the investment portfolio, the equity in the house. I had answers for all of it. I had spent the previous week organizing everything into a folder that I brought to the meeting in a briefcase. Patricia looked through it methodically, making notes. When she finished she looked up and said that I was in a strong position and that when I was ready to move forward she could file within 48 hours. I asked her to be ready for Monday. The phone call that changed everything happened on a Saturday morning that I was in the garage reorganizing shelves when my cell rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something made me answer. The voice on the other end was a woman. Calm but with an edge underneath it that I recognized immediately as someone working very hard to stay composed. My name is Diane Marsh, she said. I think our spouses know each other. I set down the box I was holding. Diane had found a camera app on a tablet she and Ryan shared for streaming. She had seen notifications she was not supposed to see. She had done her own research and found our address and spent 3 days deciding whether to call. I told her I already knew. There was a long silence, then she said, I have been married to him for 11 years. I know, I said. I'm sorry. She asked what I was going to do. I told her I had already spoken to an attorney and that I was filing Monday. Another silence. Then she said, I found a lawyer last week. I just needed to know I wasn't imagining it. You weren't. I said that I know, she said quietly. I just needed someone else to say it. We talked for 20 minutes. Two strangers connected by the specific damage that specific people had done to both of us. When we hung up I stood in the garage for a long time before I went back inside. Lauren was in the kitchen making coffee. She smiled when she saw me. 2 days, I thought. 2 more days. Patricia filed on Monday at 10 in the morning. Lauren was served at her office at 2 in the afternoon by a process server who handed her an envelope while her colleagues were at lunch. She called me 7 times between 2 and 3:30. I let every call go to voicemail. When I finally answered the 8th call I was parked outside Patricia's office building. James, her voice was completely unraveled. What is this? What is happening? That you've been served divorce papers, I said. Patricia Hale is my attorney. You'll want to find your own. She started crying. Telling me I had it wrong. Telling me whatever I thought I knew was not what it looked like. Telling me we could talk about it. Telling me please that I have footage, I said quietly. 12 separate visits over 6 weeks. I have timestamps. I have the key. He used to walk into my house while I was in Phoenix believing my marriage was intact. The crying stopped. The silence that followed was the most honest thing she had said to me in months. Lauren, I said. Find an attorney. That I ended the call and sat in the parking lot watching people walk in and out of the building across the street. A woman with a coffee. 2 men in suits. A delivery driver with a stack of packages. The ordinary world continuing in its ordinary way, completely indifferent to the particular thing that had just ended on this particular afternoon. That I drove home and started making a list of what to pack. The divorce finalized 7 months later, the house sold in March. We split the equity according to the settlement Patricia negotiated. Lauren kept her retirement accounts. I kept mine. The investment portfolio was divided cleanly. There was no fighting over furniture or dishes or any of the accumulated objects of 8 years. We had both lost the appetite for it. That I moved into an apartment on the east side of Denver with large windows and a view of the mountains on clear days. I bought a coffee maker I actually liked and 2 mugs that belonged to nobody but me. Ryan Marsh and Lauren did not last. I heard this through Cooper, who heard it through someone else, and I noted it the way you note weather in a city you no longer live in. Relevant once. Not anymore. Diane Marsh finalized her own divorce 3 months after mine. She sent me a short text on the day it was done. It said simply, done. I replied, congratulations. She replied, thank you for answering the phone. That was the last time we communicated. 2 people who helped each other through a door neither of us wanted to walk through, then went in separate directions on the other side. That I still travel for work. Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Albuquerque. The same routes, the same hotels, the same conference rooms. I come home to my apartment and my 2 mugs and the mountain view on clear mornings, and I find that I am genuinely at ease in a way I had forgotten was possible. That I am not angry at Lauren anymore. That surprised me. I expected the anger to last longer than it did. What replaced it was something quieter and more useful. A clearer sense of what I actually want from a life and a much lower tolerance for ignoring things I already know. My brother asked me recently what I learned from all of it. That I thought about the mug. That plain white mug with the chip on the handle sitting on my counter on a Tuesday morning when no one should have been home. That I said, I learned that small things are rarely small. That he nodded like that made sense. That it does. It took me longer than it should have to understand it, but it does. Trust what you notice. Not every instinct is paranoia. Some of them are just clarity arriving before you're ready for it. When something feels wrong, it usually is. The only question is what you do next.